Smoke curled through the ruins. Ash danced in the air like ghosts. The Oa warrior king lay broken among the charred bodies of his fallen comrades. Once the proud leader of a powerful race guardians of countless worlds, he was now a bleeding shadow of who he used to be. Each breath burned. Dust scraped his lungs, and the scent of scorched metal filled his nose. He had given everything. Fought across galaxies. Bled for alliances. Sworn unbreakable oaths to protect those who asked for help. But now, he was alone. Abandoned. He looked up at the sky. The suns were fading into the horizon, casting a dull golden shimmer over the wasteland. He waited for help, for honor, for anyone to prove the galaxy hadn't turned to dust. But no ships came, no voices called, just silence. In his mind, he replayed the betrayal. Allies who once raised their blades by his side had turned away in fear. They bowed to the new galactic overlord, a ruthless conqueror who tore across star systems, leaving only death. His people had run, not out of cowardice, but out of survival. They left their king to die. So this was his end. Not in glory, not in battle, but discarded. A forgotten piece on a chessboard swallowed by darkness. His vision blurred. Black mist crept into the edges of his eyes. The end was near. Then, a sound, faint, mechanical, a low hum. He forced his eyes open and squinted at the sky. A small human vessel floated above the scorched earth. Sleek, simple, unfamiliar. Humans. The young race. He had never thought much of them. No ancient tech, no grand armies. Wanderers, scavengers, brave, yes, but foolish. In politics, they were naive. In war, unpredictable. In peace, rare. Inside the ship, a heated argument was unfolding. He's not our problem, the pilot snapped. He's Oa, let him die. A silence followed. Then, a calm voice spoke. If we turn away now, the commander said quietly, we're no better than those who left him. Nobody answered. But one by one, the crew nodded. No words. Just a quiet resolve. They would not leave anyone behind. The ship lowered gently. Dust kicked up. The Oa king reached for his weapon, expecting a final battle. He could still go out fighting, but the humans approached with steady steps. Not as enemies, not even as rescuers, just people, calm, focused. You've come to mock me, the king rasped, voice weak and bitter. One last witness to the fall of a king, the commander stepped forward. His eyes met the king's, steady, honest. No, he said. We came because no one deserves to die alone. The words hit harder than a blade. No trick, no boast. Just truth. Confused, the king stared. Why would they risk their lives for him, for an alien, for a stranger? Yet they began tending to his wounds, gently lifting his broken frame. Despite the pain, he didn't stop them. He couldn't. Their hands were steady, respectful, as if he mattered. A strange warmth stirred in him, something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. And as the ship sealed shut and the medics worked in silence, the king, once mighty, now humbled, began to believe. Maybe, just maybe, not all was lost. The Oa king lay in the dim light of the human vessel. His breathing was rough, but steadier now. He could hear the faint beeping of medical scanners and soft murmurs exchanged among the crew. Hands moved carefully across his battered body, cleaning wounds, checking vitals, doing what they could to keep him alive. It was strange. These were not warriors from ancient legions or sworn allies from noble houses. They were human explorers, ordinary, unarmed by galactic standards, yet fearless. He watched them, unsure of what to feel. Suspicion still lingered in his heart like a scar that wouldn't fade. He had seen many races betray their promises. He had seen friends leave him bleeding in the dust. And yet, here they were, not asking questions, not seeking reward, just helping. His thoughts were broken by a voice on the intercom. Commander, we have incoming. The ship's lights dimmed. Weapons powered up. The crew stiffened. One of the medics quickly placed a hand on the king's shoulder. Stay calm, she said. You're safe? Safe. He hadn't heard that word in years. Outside, a squad of mercenaries touched down. Ruthless fighters, loyal to no one but coin. They had tracked the king, hoping to finish what others had started. Now they stood face to face with the humans. The mercenaries sneered. What's the price for dragging around dead weight? One shouted. He's already finished. Leave him, and we might let you walk. The human commander stepped forward. Firm and fearless. "He's not dead," he said. "And we don't leave anyone behind." The mercenaries laughed. "He's not one of yours." The commander didn't blink. "He is now." The Oeking, lying just behind them, blinked in disbelief. They stood in front of him, forming a shield not because they were ordered to, but because they chose to. The battle was short, brutal, precise. Humans fought not with the strength of legends, but with the bond of unity. Each movement was coordinated. Each shout echoed with purpose. When the last mercenary fell, the battlefield went quiet. The crew didn't cheer. They didn't stop to gloat. They turned back to the king. Weapons still warm, eyes still sharp. "We have to move," the commander said. "Extraction point is 10 clicks north." "Let's go." They lifted the king again, gently but quickly. Every step they took was through danger. And still, they didn't hesitate. As they marched through the gray dust and jagged remains of war machines, the Oeking looked at them not as lesser beings, not as fragile creatures, but as something more. They were willing to die for him, not because he was powerful, not because he was a king, but because they had decided. He mattered. He looked up at the commander, eyes narrowing. "You risked your lives, for me. Why?" The commander didn't slow his pace, because someone should have. And no one did. The king lowered his head. He didn't know what to say. He had always believed honor was a thing of empires, of power, of ancient bloodlines. But these humans, they had something else. Something older. Something real. As the extraction beacon came into view, the king whispered, "If I survive this, my people will remember." The commander glanced down at him. "That's all we ask." And for the first time since the stars turned cold above him, the Oe warrior king felt the weight of true loyalty, not the kind you demand, but the kind freely given. No flashing machines, no ancient rituals, no glowing tech passed down through forgotten dynasties. Just hands, skilled, steady, and full of intent. The medics didn't speak much, only what was needed. They worked like people who had done this 100 times before and still cared every time. One of them, a woman with gray streaks in her tied-back hair, caught his eyes. "You're doing well," she said gently, checking a gauze wrap on his ribs. The king blinked slowly. Are you all soldiers?" she chuckled. "Some of us were. Now we do what needs to be done." He paused, then asked, voice hoarse, "Why help me?" She looked at him, really looked at him. "Because you're hurt. That's all that matters. No race. No politics. No alliances. Just the fact that he was a living being, broken and bleeding." He closed his eyes for a moment. Her words echoed in his mind louder than battle cries ever had. Later, the commander entered the room and crouched beside him. He looked tired, dark lines under his eyes, dirt still smudged across his face from the earlier fight, but his gaze remained sharp, compassionate. "You're a warrior," the commander said, not as a compliment, but as a simple truth, "one of the strongest species out there." The king nodded slightly. "And yet," the commander continued, "they left you." The words cut deeper than any weapon. But there was no insult in the man's voice, just sadness, maybe even regret. The king turned his head. "Because loyalty is a currency," he rasped, "and I'm no longer worth the cost." Silence. Then the commander leaned closer. "Among us, loyalty isn't a transaction, it's a promise. And we don't break promises." The Oeking stared into his eyes, trying to understand. It was so simple, too simple. And yet it felt heavier than the sacred oaths of his ancestors. He remembered his own people, so proud, so disciplined. They had fought beside him, yes, but their loyalty had always been conditional. Dependent on politics, safety, survival. The moment the scales tipped, they vanished. Here, these humans had no ancient duty. No reason to protect him, and yet they did. The commander stood again, checking the ship's navigation panel. "We'll reach the evac point in a few hours," he said to the crew. "Let's stay sharp." As people returned to their posts, the Oeking watched the way they moved, quick, efficient, but not cold. They trusted each other with quiet nods, shared brief smiles, and even inside the stress, they kept their humanity. It was strange. He felt something inside him shift. For so long, he had defined strength as power, fear, control, but now, watching these fragile beings risk everything for him, he began to see strength in kindness, in choice, and in that moment, despite the wounds and betrayal carved into his body and heart, a seed of something new took root. The hours passed slowly, but the king did not sleep. His body was weak, but his mind was alive with memories, regrets, and questions. He lay still as the hum of the ship echoed in his chest. Around him, the humans worked checking systems, adjusting flight paths, sharing quiet conversation. Occasionally someone would glance at him, offer a respectful nod, then return to their duties. He was not their leader, he was not their friend, but they treated him like one of their own. That unsettled him more than the silence of his own people ever had. "You all right, big guy?" a young crew member asked as he passed, pausing at the door. He was barely out of boyhood, freckles scattered across his face, but there was no fear in his tone, only genuine concern. The king didn't answer immediately. Then, softly, "You treat me like I matter." Like the boy smiled, a little awkwardly. "Because you do." The king turned his eyes away. Such a simple answer. It gnawed at something deep within him. Later, he spoke with the commander again. This time, there was no need for introductions. Their conversation came naturally, like two warriors sitting by a fading fire. "I fought for centuries," the king said. "Formed alliances, protected weak worlds. I kept my word. I shed blood. And when the time came, no one came for me." The commander listened in silence, nodding. "I believed loyalty was a matter of honor," the king continued, voice low. "But honor is dead in my world, buried beneath fear and survival." "No," the commander replied quietly. "It's not dead, it's just rare." The king tilted his head. "And you think your people have found it?" The commander didn't answer with words. Instead, he motioned to the crew, the medic, the engineer tightening a loose panel, the pilot humming softly to herself. "They've seen death," he said. "They've lost people. But they still choose to fight for those who need them, even strangers." "Especially strangers." A pause. The king asked, "What if I don't deserve it?" The commander shrugged. "Doesn't matter. We didn't save you because you earned it. We saved you because no one deserves to die alone." That struck the King harder than any laser blast in his world. You earned every drop of mercy. Nothing was freely given. Even life came with a price. But here, these people had given him something priceless for nothing in return. Hope. He sat there in silence. One of the crew returned, an older man with cybernetic implants across his cheek and neck. He carried a small pouch and offered it to the king. "Food," he said. "Human-made. Might taste like engine grease to you, but it's warm." The king stared at it, then accepted. He ate slowly, the unfamiliar taste grounding him in the moment. Every chew reminded him he was still alive. He looked up again at the people around him, laughing softly, working, checking each other's well-being like siblings, not bound by race or rank, but by trust. "I don't understand your kind," the king said finally. "You're not supposed to," the commander replied. "Just understand this: we don't leave people behind, not even kings." The warrior closed his eyes for a moment. He let the warmth of the food, the words, and the ship settle deep into his bones. He was far from home, far from everything he knew, and yet, for the first time in a long time, he wasn't lost. The ship rattled softly as it passed through a cloud of space debris, remnants of some forgotten battle. The king remained strapped to a medical bench, still recovering. His wounds had closed, but inside, something deeper still bled. He looked out through a small viewport. Stars stretched endlessly, cold and quiet. Once, he had believed they were his to protect. Now, he wasn't sure he belonged to them at all. Footsteps approached. It was the medic again, the same one who had grinned at him before. She checked the monitors and adjusted a bandage on his side. "You're healing fast," she said gently. "That's a good sign." He nodded slightly. "You're very calm. Even after everything." She smiled, not looking up. "Calm is what we practice, especially when the galaxy wants to break you." He watched her work, the way her hands moved. "With care, not fear. You could have left me there. Others would have. We're not others," she replied simply. Just then, a sharp beep rang out. The ship's warning system flared red. The lights dimmed. The crew snapped into motion. "We've got incoming," the pilot said over comms. "Unknown vessel. Looks like a private raider class. Maybe mercenaries," the commander cursed under his breath. "They've tracked us." The king struggled to sit up. "They're after me." "No," the commander replied, strapping into his seat. "They're after what you represent: power, value, a message." "But if you let me go," the king said, "they might spare you." The commander turned, eyes sharp. And if we let you go, we become like everyone else, outside. The enemy ship closed in sleek, dark, and armed. The humans readied their defense systems. Shields rose. Weapons came online. The Oeking watched as the crew, this small, young crew, stood between death and him. Not because of orders, not because of reward, but because they had chosen to brace for contact. The pilot warned. Moments later, the enemy ship fired. The human vessel shook. Sparks burst from a side console. Alarm screamed. We've lost our port stabilizer. The engineer shouted. They'll board us, the commander said grimly. The Oeking forced himself to rise, gripping the side rail. Then let them. The commander glanced at him. You sure you can fight? No, the king said. But I'll stand. The humans took defensive positions in the narrow corridor. Lights dimmed to red. Blasters in hand, they waited. Then came the sound of cutting steel boarding clamps slicing through the hull. The mercenaries entered, confident and well-armed. They expected fear. What they met was fire. The humans fought with precision and heart. Every blast was aimed. Every step held purpose. The Oeking stood behind them, weak but unbroken, watching these warriors so small, so fragile risk everything for him, for honor. The mercenaries jeered. Why die for him? He's finished. The commander didn't blink. Because he's not just a king, he's under our care. The fight raged for minutes that felt like hours, but the humans didn't fall back. They advanced. And soon it was over. The enemy fled, bruised and broken. The ship held. The humans had won. Smoke drifted through the corridor. The crew coughed and laughed, exhausted but alive. The Oeking stood in the middle of it all, his armor scorched, eyes wide. He had seen wars between empires, battles between gods, but this small act of courage was greater than all of them. You're not soldiers, he said hoarsely. No, the commander replied. We're something older than soldiers. What's that? Family. And the king felt something stir in him, something he thought long dead. Faith. The corridors of the ship were quiet now. No more alarms, no more shouting. Only the low hum of life support systems and the occasional creak of strained metal. The Oeking sat in the medbay, his body aching, his mind even more so. For the first time in what felt like centuries, he wasn't preparing for battle. He was recovering from one. He glanced around at the humans who had saved him. They weren't celebrating. They didn't need to. Their calm told him everything. This was just another day, another choice made in a life filled with difficult ones. The old medic sat beside him again, wrapping a fresh layer of bandages over his arm. She didn't speak at first, just worked. Why? He asked softly. You keep helping me. I was your enemy once. She gave a tired smile. You were never our enemy. You were just part of a war. He lowered his gaze. My people wouldn't have done the same for yours. She nodded. Maybe not, but maybe. They will one day. He looked at her, and for once didn't try to argue, because somewhere inside him, buried deep beneath pride and pain, a small voice hoped she was right. Later, in the ship's common bay, the crew gathered around a simple table. Some shared protein rations, others patched up their armor. The king sat nearby, silent at first, hungry. One of the younger soldiers asked, offering him a metal tray. He looked down at it. Simple food, no gold, no feast, but it was shared. Freely. He took it. Thank you, he said. You're one of us now, the young soldier replied. We look after our own. The king looked at the faces around him, tired, bruised, and yet whole. They had no great palaces, no thrones, no banners waving in the stars. But they had something more rare, trust. Do you know what my people used to say about humans? The king said suddenly. The crew turned to listen. We called you the flicker raced bright, chaotic, short-lived. A few smiled. You were wrong. The commander asked, half-teasing. The king nodded. Partly. You are flickers, but you burn hotter than most. And you carry each other's light. The commander leaned forward. What will you do when you return? The king didn't answer immediately. He looked out the small viewing screen. The stars were out again, cold and distant, but no longer empty. I will tell them what happened here, he said finally. I will tell them how you fought, how you chose to help a stranger, how you held your ground when even my allies ran. He looked at each of them. I will tell them what humanity really means. The commander gave a small nod. You don't owe us anything. Maybe not, the king replied. But I intend to repay it anyway. The ship approached a friendly dock station orbiting a nearby moon. The extraction point was in sight. Safety. Finally, as the ship slowed, the king stood, his steps still stiff but steady. The crew lined up beside him, no salute, no grand farewell. Just quiet respect. Before leaving the ship, the king turned to the commander. "If I live long enough," he said, "I will return." Not as a king, but as a brother, the commander extended his hand. "We'll be waiting." They shook hands not as rulers, not as warriors, but as men who had survived something together. And as the King stepped onto the landing ramp, he carried more than healing wounds or fading memories. He carried something far more powerful: hope. Reborn, not through power, but through compassion, through humanity.